Then later on, Mahaprabhu went to Ramakeli, and in Ramakeli he met Rupa and Sanatan. And he was planning to go to Vrindavan, but as he went to Ramakeli, thousands of people began following him. And so Rupa and Sanatan told him, you should not go to Vrindavan with so many people, that will not be good. So again, third time Mahaprabhu failed. So like this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaches us it's not so easy to go to Vrindavan. Srila Prabhupada once said you cannot buy a ticket to Vrindavan. When the time is right, everything will happen. But then finally, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did go to Vrindavan, and he spent some months there. And on the way back from Sri Vrindavan, Mahaprabhu stopped at two places. The first place he stopped was Prayag, Allahabad, and there he instructed Rupa Goswami for 10 days. And then he stopped at Varanasi, and in Varanasi he instructed Sanatan Goswami for how long? Anyone remember? How many months? 2 months, yes. So it was a long time, and these chapters of the Chaitanya Charitamrita 19 to 25 are all about the teachings of Mahaprabhu to Rupa and Sanatan. So these are very, very deep chapters in which the philosophy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is given. You see, Mahaprabhu, he did not write down any books. But when he wanted to document all the philosophy of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, then he did it through the Goswamis of Vrindavan. We say the Goswamis of Vrindavan are masterminds of bhakti. The first reason they're masterminds is because they've mastered their mind. Goswami means one who has conquered their mind and senses. But the Goswamis are also masterminds because they understood the mind of their master. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale. But they are also masterminds because they know how to masterfully reach the minds of all the living entities. And therefore they documented the process of how to practice devotional service. So today you have picked a verse which actually gets to the essence of everything. Clearly, Columbus is clearly full of Saragrahi Vaishnavas. Saragrahi means to grasp the essence. So you have grasped a beautiful verse. I think many of you will know it. But if you don't, you can just repeat after me. It's very, very simple. So this is text number 100 from the 22nd chapter. Oh, you have it on the screen. Very good. Anukulyasya sankalpa Anukulyasya varjana Shishyati iti vishvasho Gopritve varanam tatha Atmanikshepakarpanye Samvida sharanagati Anukulyasya sankalpa Anukulyasya varjanam Shishyati iti vishvasho Gopritve varanam tatha Atmanikshepakarpanye Samvida sharanagati Anukulyasya sankalpa Anukulyasya varjanam Shishyati iti vishvasho Gopritve varanam tatha Atmanikshepakarpanye Samvida sharanagati Anyone would like to recite?
Anukulyasya sankalpya Anukulyasya sankalpa. Pratikulyasya varjanam. Rakshasya vishvaso. Gopritve varnam tatha. Atmanikshepa karpanya. Sarvita sharanagati.
Anukulyasya sankalpa.
Anukulyasya sankalpa.
Pratikulyasya varjanam.
Pratikulyasya varjanam.
Rakshishyati iti vishvaso.
Rakshishyati iti vishvaso.
Gopritve varnam tatha.
Gopritve varnam tatha.
Atmanikshepa karpanye.
Atmanikshepa karpanye.
Sarvita sharanagati.
Sarvita sharanagati.
Anukulyasya sankalpa.
Anukulyasya sankalpa.
Pratikulyasya varjanam.
Pratikulyasya varjanam.
Rakshishyati iti vishvaso.
Rakshishyati iti vishvaso.
Gopritve varanam tatha.
Gopritve varnam tatha.
Atmanikshepa karpanye.
Atmanikshepa karpanye.
Sadvidha sharanagati.
Sarvita sharanagati.
Anukulyasya sankalpa.
Anukulyasya sankalpa.
Pratikulyasya varjanam.
Pratikulyasya varjanam.
Rakshishyati iti vishvaso.
Rakshishyati iti vishvaso.
Gopritve varanam tatha.
Gopritve varnam tatha.
Atmanikshepa karpanye.
Atmanikshepa karpanye.
Sarvitha sharanagati.
Sarvita sharanagati.
Anukulyasya.
Anukulyasya.
Anything that assists in devotional service to the Lord.
Anything that assists in devotional service to the Lord.
Sankalpa.
Sankalpa.
Acceptance.
Acceptance.
Pratikulyasya.
Pratikulyasya.
Anything that hinders devotional service.
Anything that hinders devotional service.
Varjanam.
Varjanam.
Complete rejection.
Complete rejection.
Rakshishyati.
Rakshishyati.
He will protect.
He will protect.
Iti. Thus.
Thus.
Vishvashaha.
Vishvasaha.
Strong conviction.
Strong conviction.
Gopritve.
Gopritve.
Being the guardian.
Being the guardian.
Like the father or husband.
Like the father or husband.
Master or maintainer.
Master or maintainer.
Varanam.
Varanam.
Acceptance.
Acceptance.
Tatha. As well as. Atmanikshepa.
Atmanikshepa.
Full self-surrender.
Full self-surrender.
Arpanye.
Arpanye.
Humility.
Humility.
Satvida.
Satvida.
Sixfold.
Sixfold.
Sharanagati.
Sharanagati.
Process of surrender.
Process of surrender.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Translation. The 6 divisions of surrender are the acceptance of those things that are favorable to devotional service, the rejection of unfavorable things, the conviction that Krishna will give protection, the acceptance of the Lord as one's guardian or master, full self-surrender and humility. Purport. One who is fully surrendered is qualified with the 6 following characteristics. 1. The devotee has to accept everything that is favorable for the rendering of transcendental loving service to the Lord. 2. He must reject everything unfavorable to the Lord's service. This is also called renunciation. 3. A devotee must be firmly convinced that Krishna will give him protection. No one else can actually give one protection, and being firmly convinced of this is called faith. This kind of faith is different from the faith of an impersonalist who wants to merge into the Brahman effulgence in order to benefit by cessation of repeated birth and death. A devotee wants to remain always in the Lord's service. In this way, Krishna is merciful to his devotee and gives them all protection from the dangers found on the path of devotional service. 4. The devotee should accept Krishna as his supreme maintainer and master. He should not think that he is being protected by a demigod. He should depend only on Krishna, considering him the only protector. The devotee must be firmly convinced that within the three worlds he has no protector or maintainer other than Krishna. Self-surrender. 5. Self-surrender means remembering that one's activities and desires are not independent. The devotee is completely dependent on Krishna and he acts and thinks as Krishna desires. 6. The devotee is meek and humble. Lord Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Sarvasya chaham vedi sanivishtam matasmitim jnanam apohanam cha vedesha sarveraham eva vedyo vedanta veda vedeva chaham. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of the Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. Situated in everyone's heart, Krishna deals differently according to the living entity's position. The living entity's position is to be under the protection of the illusory energy, or under Krishna's personal protection. When a living entity is fully surrendered, he is under the direct protection of Krishna, and Krishna gives him all intelligence by which he can advance in spiritual realization. The non-devotee, however, being under the protection of the illusory energy, increasingly forgets his relationship with Krishna. Sometimes it is asked how Krishna causes one to forget. Krishna personally causes his devotee to forget material activities, and through the agency of Maya, Krishna causes the non-devotee to forget his devotional service to the Lord. This is called Apohana. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnana-shalakaya Chakshur-milidam yena Tasmai Shri-Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Mano-Ishtam Sthapitam yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa-Ramayam Dasi Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavansya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kranta Radha Kranta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhuvya Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
So it is said, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prem Sadhyaka Gunai. That love for Krishna is established already within the heart. One does not need to acquire it from any other place. Simply it has to be reawakened, and it's reawakened by performing certain activities. It's reawakened by adopting a certain lifestyle, and it's reawakened by having a certain disposition of desperation and eagerness and enthusiasm. And when all of these elements are there, then naturally love for Krishna will come about. So, as mentioned, the Goswamis of Vrindavan are the masterminds of bhakti. They know how to reach the minds of the people and share with them the activities that can help them to reawaken love for Krishna. And so, the Goswamis documented the complete science of devotional service. Amongst the Goswamis, Rupa Goswami, we can say, was the leader. Although Sanatan Goswami was older, it's said that Rupa Goswami was the one who Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu invested with the most confidential insights. Therefore, he was known as the Rasa Acharya. Yet what we can also see is that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught all of the Goswamis, and most likely it seems as though they were all sharing knowledge and what they learned from Mahaprabhu with each other. Therefore, when you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, then sometimes you read teachings that are given to Sanatan Goswami, but then later on you see that they are written down by Rupa Goswami. Because yes, the Vaishnavas, when they get some knowledge, some insight, then naturally they want to share it with others. So Rupa Goswami, he wrote down this process of surrender. He wrote down the process of how one can awaken love for Krishna. And that book became known as the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Rasa means the mellow, Amrita means nectar, Sindhu means an ocean, and Bhakti means devotion. And so Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu means literally the ocean of nectarian devotional mellows. If you think about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his love was like a waterfall. Recently we were in Canada, so there's Niagara Falls there. You may have been. So if you go anywhere near, you can't go too close to the waterfall because it's so intense. Would you ever take bath under a waterfall? Good luck. It's very intense. Maybe it will be too much for your body. So Mahaprabhu's love was like a waterfall. But then what the Goswamis did is they took the waterfall of Mahaprabhu's love and they made it into an ocean. Can you bathe in an ocean? Yes. So they made the love that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited accessible for all living entities. And therefore, Rupa Goswami writes this beautiful book, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And Srila Prabhupada subtitles it, The Complete Science of Devotional Service. Sometimes people make a distinction between science and spirituality. They say, no, this is objective, this is subjective. This is something that can be proved, but this is something that is believed. This is something for which there is proof, but this is just something in your mind. But actually, Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas, they never present Krishna consciousness as a religion or a faith. Rather, they present it as a spiritual science. And so what Rupa Goswami does in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is he says, if you do these activities with this kind of mood and mentality, then definitely these things will happen in the transformation of your consciousness. So you can try. You can become a spiritual scientist and you can see whether it actually works. So here, in this verse, what is being mentioned are the 6 items by which a surrendered devotee can be identified. And these are very, very interesting because these are not just items by which a pure devotee can be identified, But these are the items which will allow one to also become a pure devotee. Because there are two words in Sanskrit, anusarini and anukarini. Anusarini means to follow in the footsteps, to follow the essence. And anukarini means to try to imitate. So we are advised, don't try to imitate the activities of pure devotees. But what we should do is try to follow in their footsteps and understand the essence of what they do, and then try to do the same thing. So Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, they are surrendered devotees. These 6 things come very, very naturally to them, without even thinking. Now we may say, I'm not a pure devotee, so does that mean these things are irrelevant to me? No, you can still cultivate these. You can still try to appropriately, in a way that's relevant for your life, live these 6 things in your own day-to-day existence. And as you do these 6 things more and more, then what you will find is that natural surrender to Krishna comes about more and more. In these 6 items, the acharyas, they say, the first 2 items, which are accepting those things which are and rejecting those things which are unfavorable. So they say the first 2 items of these 6 items refer to one's actions, activities. They say the second 2 items, to have the firm conviction that Krishna will protect, and to accept the Lord as one's guardian and master. They say these second 2 relate to the mind, one's mindset, one's disposition. Because the mind is always oscillating, thinking, planning, expecting, fearing. Therefore, when we know, no, the Lord is the protector, the Lord will maintain me. When the mind is infused with this mentality, the mind becomes peaceful. And therefore the acharyas say the second 2 refer to the mind. And the final 2, which are complete self-surrender and developing deep humility, they say these 2 relate to the ego, the deep sense of identity that one has. So when one is Atmanikshapa, completely, they surrender their ego completely. That I have no separate identity, I am simply a servant of Krishna. And then this deep humility, to take oneself out of the center. Everyone wants to be the center of everything. They say in the first 20 years of your life, you're very worried what people think about you. In the second 20 years of your life, you don't care what people think about you anymore. And in the final 20 years of your life, you realize no one was thinking about you anymore. But we have a deep conviction that we are the center of everything. But Karpanye, then later one realizes, no, humility, who am I? But I'm connected to Krishna. Significant in that sense, otherwise completely insignificant. And therefore the final 2 items refer to the ego. And therefore in this way, when these 6 items are fully integrated in one's life, then naturally one's actions, one's mind, and one's very ego has been completely aligned with Krishna. And therefore one can be said to be completely surrendered. Vrindavan is also known as Vraja, isn't it? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gives a very interesting definition of Vraja. He says Vraja means to walk. And therefore the residents of Vrindavan are known as Vrajabasis, because they are always walking with the plan of Krishna. Sometimes Krishna changes his mind. Sometimes Krishna changes his plans. Sometimes Krishna changes your life. Sometimes Krishna switches up all the fortunes. But the surrendered devotees, the Vrajabasis, they are always walking with Krishna, not fighting Krishna's plans, fearless, flexible, fully available to do whatever Krishna desires. And this is basically surrender. So here in this verse, we're learning about all these items. It's very interesting because this is knowledge is given to Sanatana Goswami, and perhaps Sanatana Goswami in his own life is the great example of someone who imbibed all of these 6 items of surrender. He accepted that which was favorable to his devotional service, isn't it? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he had captured Sanatana Goswami's mind, and later on Sanatana Goswami was saying, no, I just want to run away and I just want to be with you. And then Mahaprabhu sent him back a letter, and in that letter there was a cryptic verse. Paravya sinini nari vyagrapi greha karmashu tadeva svadayatyantar navasanga rasayanam. Mahaprabhu sent him back a letter and he said, just as a lady who is married but has another lover that she is enchanted by, that lady continues on doing all of her household duties very, very diligently, but all the time she is thinking of her lover. So Mahaprabhu told him, no, now you should not give up your government job. Rather, you should stay there and accept it, because by being there, the fire within you to want to be with me will grow and grow and grow, and when the time is right, then you can leave. So Sanatana Goswami accepted the position, even though he didn't want it, because it was favorable to his devotional service, according to Mahaprabhu's instruction. But then later on, when the fire became too much, then what did he do? Pratikolyasya varjanam. Then he rejected it. What did he do? He was first calling in sick. It's bona fide to call in sick and do devotional service. So he was calling in sick. No, I cannot come. Too much fever. And then at home in the palace or wherever he was having all the Bhagavatam reciters, isn't it? And then finally the Nawab Hussain found out. And then at that point, Sanatana Goswami said, no, I cannot come back now. You have plundered too many people. I don't want to be part of this anymore. I simply want to give my heart to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And therefore, Pratikolyasya Varjanam, he gave up his job. Second item of surrender. But then when he gave up his job, what did the Nawab Hussain do? Threw him in?
Prison.
Threw him in prison, yes. You can go to that prison even today, you can see where Sanatana Goswami was imprisoned. So then he imprisoned him. But then we know Sanatana Goswami, he was a great diplomat. He knew how to negotiate. See, the Goswamis were not spiritually deep, but they were also very, very streetwise. See, the great devotees, they know how to get things done in the world as well. Even Srila Prabhupada said, no one can defeat me, I'm a Calcutta boy. So Prabhupada said, when it comes to business, I know how to also do. So Srila Prabhupada was very expert. The devotees know how to negotiate. So Sanatana Goswami, isn't it? He negotiated with the jail keeper. Yes, you let me go. I'll give you some money. He said, no, I will get in trouble. Sanatana Goswami says, no, tell them you released me just so I could go on pilgrimage to Mecca. like this, he was trying to convince him. Finally, they came to some arrangement whereby he could get the money and he would not get in trouble. And then finally, Sanatana Goswami left. He left. He knew that if I run away from prison, I'll be a fugitive. People will, Nawab soldiers will come looking after me, looking where I am. They'll kill me probably. But what was the third item of surrender? Rakshishyati vishvasho. But he had the firm conviction, no, if I try to give my heart to the Lord, then the Lord will protect me. The Lord has to protect me. The Lord will definitely make all arrangements for me to reach His lotus feet. And so Sanatana Goswami left, and he ventured through the secret routes to try to find Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And of course we know that that journey was very, very arduous. And yes, on that journey he had no idea how he would maintain himself, what he would eat, where he would stay. That was completely unknown. But the fourth item of surrender is Goptritve Varanam Tata, to accept the Lord as one's guardian and master. And therefore he knew, yes, the Lord will protect. Even Sukadeva Goswami says, why do people worry so much about shelter? Are there not caves? Why do they want pillows? Does the arm that Krishna has given you not suffice as a pillow? People work so hard for food. Are there not fruits and berries on the tree? And people worry about clothes, but aren't there always some torn garment somewhere that you can find? He says, Krishna is providing everything. He is my maintainer. So Sanatana Goswami had that firm conviction. And then he came to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, isn't it? He came outside the home of Chandrasekhar Acharya. Mahaprabhu was inside. He could understand a great devotee has come, so he told him, go outside, see who is there, a great devotee is there. Of course, Sanatana Goswami was completely disheveled, unshaven, in rags. And so Chandrasekhar came out, he looked around, didn't see anyone who looked like an amazing devotee. So he came and he said, there's no one there. But I said, no, there's someone there. No, there's just some beggar there. No one else. No, he is the one. And then Mahaprabhu brought him in. And Sanatana Goswami, in that meeting with Mahaprabhu, he expressed his deep humility. Nicha jati nicha sangi patita adham kuvishaya kupepadi gunai mujana. He said, I'm low-born, I have bad association, practically my whole life I wasted in this occupational Muslim government. There's no good in my life, but now I've come to you, please make something good of it. Mahaprabhu embraced him. He felt so bad because he had sores on his skin. Blood and pus was oozing out, but the Lord didn't hesitate. He felt so bad, so humble. Karpanye, the fifth item of surrender. And then Sanatana Goswami fully offered himself to the Lord for service. Yes, Sanatana Goswami couldn't bear it that the Lord was embracing him, that the Lord's body was becoming defiled by the blood and pus that was coming out of the sores on his body. And therefore Sanatana Goswami resolved, I will commit suicide. There are three spiritual ways to commit suicide. One is to jump in the Triveni Sangam, one is to jump off Govardhan Hill, and the third one is to jump and be crushed by the Rath Yatra cart. Of course, we don't recommend any of them for you. But Sanatana Goswami opted for option number 3. So he planned, when the Jagannath Rath Yatra happens, I can't bear that Mahaprabhu's body is contaminated by me. Therefore I just jump under the Rath Yatra car. Mahaprabhu could understand his mind. It wasn't just Sanatan Goswami who was a mastermind. Mahaprabhu was also even more of a mastermind. And therefore he knew the mind, the plan of Sanatan Goswami. And then he made a very famous statement. He said, Sanatan Goswami, you're a thief. Because you are destroying that which doesn't belong to you. Sanatan Goswami says, what do you mean? I surrendered everything to you. Mahaprabhu said, your body is mine. You've surrendered to me. So you no longer have any claim to your body. And through your body will be the instrument through which I will do many things in this world. And therefore, how can you even think of destroying this body? You have already surrendered this body to me. Atma Nikshepa. And in this way, Sanatan Goswami was defeated. He said, yes, okay. So can you see how beautifully this knowledge is being given to Sanatan Goswami? And Sanatan Goswami is also the complete, ideal, spotless example of this sixfold surrender. So this is very, very beautiful, what we're reading today. We can all think, how can I surrender my actions, signified by the first two things? How can I surrender in mind, characterized by the second two things? And how can I surrender my ego more and more, characterized by the third pillar? And if we do this, then life becomes very, very beautiful. The goal of life is to surrender, to just let go. Therefore, Krishna ends the Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharman Parityaja, just abandon everything and surrender to me. That is the quality of one's spiritual life. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. So thank you so much for picking this beautiful verse. And see whether maybe you have any questions or comments. Yes. Yes.
Very grateful for your presence. Very grateful for this beautiful class. Recently I was wondering about the dynamic nature of Anukulasya Sankalpa Pratikulasya Vivarjanam, because what is Anukul at one point may not remain Anukul at another point. And you elaborated it, but I was just wondering if you could just speak a little more from your life experience and philosophical insights apart from this current example. That would
Yes, thank you so much. Very nice point. What is favorable and what is unfavorable is a constantly dynamic thing in the world. Srila Prabhupada said, books are the basis, purity is the force, preaching is the essence, and utility is the principle. So utility is the principle. Whenever we look at something in this world, we are asking, what is its utility? Sometimes there will be objects in your life, and sometimes they will be favorable. You can do so much service through them. But then at one point you may feel this is becoming unfavorable. We tell people, are you using your device, or is your device using you? Are you owning something, or are you becoming owned by something? At some point there may be an object in your life which you were using, which was helping you in your devotional service, but then you realize this is taking over my consciousness, and therefore at one point one may give up objects. We are given positions in this world of serving, and sometimes those positions we accept them. But no, why should a devotee accept more designations? I thought the whole purpose of life is to give up designations. Sarvopadi, vinirmuktam. But sometimes no, we may accept a position, a designation. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas. Why? Because it helped him for service. But then later on, someone may give up those designations if they hamper one's consciousness, if they become an impediment. Later on, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Naham vipro nacha narapatir napi vaisho nasudro. Actually, I'm not any of these things. I'm just utilizing it. And then later on, if it's not required, then we can also give it up. So sometimes we can also give up positions. Sometimes it's not necessary. It's not doing anything. Let me move on. Therefore, you find even in the Bhagavatam, the kings, at some point in their life, they're giving up their designation, and it's said they go to the north. They just go as a mendicant with no title. So sometimes we give up objects, sometimes we give up positions, relationships. Sometimes some relationships are very, very beneficial for us. They are helping us in our devotional service. But then sometimes we find those same relationships are becoming a hindrance. And therefore, at some point, we may also, isn't it? Anga, he had a son. What was his son's name? Vena. So, Vena became quite destructive. And at a certain point, Anga realized, no, it's not. This is not the right thing anymore. I have to leave. Does that mean when a relationship is difficult, we should just leave? No, not necessarily. Of course, Anga had a very high level of surrender, so he was able to give up all of his duties, but at the same time he was able to surrender to Krishna. But if we're not able to do that level of surrender, we can't give up our duties so easily. But still, it's an example. Even amongst the devotee community, we have to be alert. That yes, everyone is a devotee, and I respect and honor everyone. Yet also we should always intimately associate with those devotees who are nourishing and uplifting our spiritual journey. And therefore, even there is some level of discrimination of who we spend the most amount of time with, because that will determine the quality of your devotional service. So yes, life is always dynamic. Your facilities, your identities, your relationships, it constantly needs to be audited to see whether it's supporting your devotional aspirations. Is that okay? Thank you.
Correct. Talked about cultivating six qualities. Is it cultivating, or do they manifest automatically as you are practicing those qualities?
Yes.
Manifest?
So do qualities manifest as a perfection, or is it something we have to cultivate? These qualities are a cultivation and also a perfection, both. As we act in this way, even when we don't feel like it, as we try to make decisions based on these principles of surrender, even when we don't have the deep conviction within our heart, when we do that kind of cultivation, then what happens is we get a reciprocation with Krishna. And when we get a reciprocation with Krishna, then it builds our faith. And when our faith is sufficiently built, Shraddha Shabde Vishwash Kohe Sudhrida Nishchoy, Krishna Bhakti Koile Sarva Karma Krita Hoy. So when your faith is sufficiently built, when that initial Ado Shraddha is built more and more, then it becomes conviction. And when one has conviction, then naturally these things are happening. So from Shraddha to Nishta, you have to do these things as a cultivation. But after Nishta, when one is fixed in realization of Krishna, then these things become a perfection. It's just a natural exhibition of one's surrender. So at the moment we are trying to get to Nishta. Sta means we're steady. It's interesting, if you look at all of the English words which begin ST, what words come to your mind?
Study.
Steady,
Stable.
stop,
Stable.
stand,
Student.
still,
Stable.
stay,
Student.
staple. So can you see all of the words have a sense of being in one place? Right now we are not in one place. Bahusaka, Yanantascha. We are Bahusaka. We are very diverted in many places. But Nishta means one place. Stay there. Steady. So when we get there, then it means the faith has, and then these things happen automatically. But until we get there, we cultivate it. Is that okay? Yes.
Maharaj, do you have any favorite songs from Sharanagati that you would like to elaborate, or favorite verses?
Oh yes, thank you for mentioning that. Yes, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he takes this sixfold process of surrender and then he writes a songbook called Sharanagati. And then what he does is within each one of these items of surrender, he sings many different songs. So there are many beautiful songs. In the humility section of Saranagati, I think it's in the humility section, he writes the song Amar Jivan, My Life. If we would write a song, My Life, what would you write? It's a good question. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, when he writes about his life and his realizations on what he's done, this is what he says. My life, I am an impious sinner and have caused others great anxiety and trouble. I never hesitated to perform sinful acts for my own enjoyment. Devoid of all compassion, concerned only with my own selfish interests, I am remorseful seeing others happy. I am a perpetual liar, and the misery of others is a source of great pleasure for me. Material desires within the core of my heart are unlimited. I am wrathful, devoted to false pride and ignorance, intoxicated by vanity and bewildered by worldly affairs. Envy and egotism are the ornaments I wear. Ruined by laziness and sleep, I resist all pious deeds, yet I am very active and enthusiastic to perform wicked deeds. For worldly fame and reputation, I engage in the practice of deceitfulness. Thus, I am destroyed by my own greed and am always lustful. A vile, wicked man such as this, rejected by godly people, is a constant offender. I am such a person, devoid of all good works, forever inclined toward evil, worn out and wasted by various miseries. Now in old age, deprived of all means of success, humbled and poor, Bhaktivinoda submits his tale of grief at the feet of the Supreme Lord. Hare Krishna. Chant and be happy. It's interesting that the great devotees have this infinite humility. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Premera svabhava yaha premera sambandh, se mane Krishna mora nahi prema gandh. The very svabhav, the very nature of someone who has prema, love. Se mane is that in their mind they think, Krishna mora nahi prema gand. I don't have one drop of love for Krishna. Yet their humility and their feeling of being so small, because it's in relation to Krishna's greatness, they never become depressed or hopeless. When Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying this, his tale of grief, simultaneously in his heart there is great joy and happiness. Because on one hand he is feeling himself to be incredibly fallen, but on another hand he is seeing himself to be incredibly fortunate because he is connected to Krishna. And therefore when we read this we think, oh my God, this would like destroy my life, if I thought like this. But it would only destroy your life if you didn't have the other aspect, which was the great hope, the Asha Bandha, the hope against hope, that because this process is so amazing, because Krishna is so amazing, even though I am so fallen, Krishna is always greater than my Maya. And therefore, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is actually feeling like this, but he simultaneously has great joy. The same Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in another song, he says, Jai Dina Grihe, Bhajana Deki, Grihe Te Goloka Bhai. Every single day when I go home and I do my bhajan, then I see the whole spiritual world manifest before me. So it's very interesting. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is having this double realization, and they seamlessly integrate, because the pure devotee, because they're so close to Krishna, they see themselves as so small and insignificant, yet they're still so inspired and enthused. So this is the mysticism of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, that we see these things going on. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for your lecture. My question is, how do we come to realizations, or perhaps come to realizations faster? Because sometimes I feel like I'm reading, I'm listening, but when it's time to practice the realization, it's not there. And then I realize maybe I'm just hearing and not listening. So how do I actually come to realizations?
Can you repeat your question, please?
So the question is, sometimes we feel like we're hearing, but we're not coming to realizations. So how can we actually come to realization? The Vaishnava teachers tell us that learning goes through 4 stages: Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, and Vandanam. The first thing is that we hear. That's called Shravanam. But then the next thing we need to do is Mananam. We need to deeply think about it. We need to contemplate it. We need to introspect on it. After we hear a class, after we read a page of Prabhupada's books, we have to think, what is the implication of this knowledge? What does it mean for my life? How will it change me when I wake up tomorrow morning in terms of the decisions I make, the desires I cultivate, the directions that I take in my life, the actions that I perform? Every time we hear or read something, we should think, how does this apply to my life? How does it change my life? And then Nididhyasanam. Then you actually have to make a plan that based on whatever you hear, you have to try to apply it. And when you apply it, it becomes very, very exciting, because what happens is you see that this is not just wisdom. This is wisdom that breathes. This is real. It changes my life. It's alive. It's like, who would read a recipe book just for like the sake of reading a recipe book? But when you take a recipe book and you make something with it and it works, then you'll read that recipe book again. you'll keep it, isn't it? Because you've made something from it. So here we are reading about Saranagati. Then we need to go back and ask myself, draw 6 columns on a piece of paper, accepting what is favorable, rejecting what is unfavorable, and then ask ourselves, can I put 2 things in each column that I'm going to begin doing, or even 1 thing that I'm going to begin doing from tomorrow to be more surrendered? Then you might find that when you come to read this again, or when you come back to the books, you feel more excited because you feel this is changing my life. And then the final step is vandanam, which means prayer. Because whenever we apply something, the tendency is always that we give up after some time. And therefore, in order to complete the learning process, we're always praying that, Lord, allow this to remain a constant consciousness within me. Give me the strength to live this knowledge that you've kindly given me. And so when we do that, otherwise if you're just hearing, imagine if you open your mouth and you just keep putting food in your mouth. I mean, at one point, you have to close, chew, swallow, and digest. But maybe a lot of what we do is just keep putting food in the mouth. Once I did a calculation to think, like, how many classes did I listen to in my life? I don't know, all of us, isn't it? Thousands and thousands and thousands of classes. And of course, it all has an effect. But according to the qualification and the seriousness of the listener, more or less will be digested from that. Therefore, if you look at the whole first canto of the Bhagavatam, Sridhar Swami says the whole first canto of the Bhagavatam is just meant to establish adhikar. Adhikar means the qualification of the listener. He actually says the first canto, the main reason that it exists is to establish within us what is the qualification of one who can actually hear Bhagavatam. Because in the first canto you have 3 conversations. The conversation between Sutta and the sages, the conversation between Narada and Vyas, and the conversation between Parikshit and Sukha. And so he says, if you closely study these 3 conversations and the mentality of the listener, then you will see how eager they are and what it means to actually listen to Bhagavatam. Narad was so eager, Vyas was so eager to hear from Narad. The sages were so eager to hear from Sutta, and Parikshit was so eager, so desperate to hear from Sukadev. And therefore the whole first canto is about Adhikar. Therefore Parikshit got it in 7 days. Therefore Arjun got it in 45 minutes. Because there was a certain quality.
Continuing that thread. So on one side we see that we need to hear and hear and hear, but then seems like for me personally, it's like I need to stop hearing because how much I'm applying. And if I just continue hearing, I just have all this undigested information, knowledge. And then I so maybe
It's interesting, you can get blinded in 2 ways. You can get blinded when there's no sunlight, and you can also get blinded if you look at the sun. It becomes like you can't see anything. So there is actually a notion in the world that sometimes ignorance comes from not having any knowledge, and sometimes ignorance comes from having so many so much information that you don't know what to do with it. And it becomes another type of ignorance. So it's not necessarily that we should stop hearing, because the Bhagavatam does say, Nasta prayeshva padreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya. By regular attendance at classes on the Bhagavatam, all that is troublesome within the heart is almost completely destroyed, and irrevocable devotional service to the Supreme Lord is established as an irrevocable fact. So there is a sense of to continue listening, because listening is purifying, hearing is purifying. Just like, you know that story of the guru who told his disciple, can you go and fetch some water from the lake? And he gave him a bucket. And so the disciple went, he filled up the bucket, and as he was coming back, he saw there were holes in the bucket. And so he got back and the bucket was empty. And the Guru said, go back and fill water. So he went back, filled it up, tried to run this time, but still, it went through all the holes. The disciple was frustrated. The Guru said, go back, fill up water. And then he went back again. This time he took a rickshaw back. But still, everything had escaped. And then the disciple came to the Guru and said, it's useless. Every time I go, it's not working. And the Guru said, but I didn't want any water. I just wanted the bucket to be cleaned. And so sometimes we feel like we're listening, and it's just like going in one ear, out of another ear. And of course we always have to make sure we're being attentive and trying to apply it. But we should also be confident that sometimes even if we don't remember everything, even still just hearing the sound vibration is purifying. So I would say it's not necessarily about stopping hearing and just doing that, but continue hearing, but also, yes, try to do something with that knowledge. Actually, spiritual learning is like a spiral. You keep hearing the same thing again and again and again, but by hearing it again and again, finally you get to the essence of it, which is actually very simple. So it's not just about getting more and more information, but it's about understanding the essence. I don't know if that helps. It's 9:15. I'm okay with time. Are we okay to continue?
Maybe last question.
Last question.
I mean, anybody has to go, they can.
No, who wishes to go, they can.
Okay, yeah. If anyone is late and you all may need to move on, so we continue. But if anyone needs to leave, then please don't feel uncomfortable.
I was just making a comment that somewhere in the third canto, it might be in third canto, chapter 6, verse 36 or around there. Maitreya tells Vidura asks him questions, and Maitreya is very humble and he doesn't think he's qualified to answer the questions, but he says, I will speak what I have heard, because if I don't repeat, then my hearing will not be chaste. So it's by also speaking that we also digest.
Yes, so that's also another beautiful point that Satam prasangan mama virya samvedo bhavanti rit karna rasayana katha is a very beautiful verse, Canto 3, chapter 25, text 25, 325-25. It's mentioned that as you hear and discuss in the association of devotees, then three things happen: Shraddha, Ratir, Bhakti, Anukrimashyati. When you listen together, then what happens is you get Shraddha, your faith increases, your Rati, your attraction increases, and Bhakti, your is it there? Okay, very good. scholar and thank you so much. Yeah, so you can see the translation. 3 things will increase your faith, your attraction, and your bhakti. These will all increase. So therefore, when we discuss and we repeat, that also has a very powerful effect. Yes, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. During the class you mentioned that Prabhupada, as like he said that spiritual knowledge is like a science, like a spiritual science. And I don't know, I kind of have like a little doubt when it comes to that because I don't know, like science for me means something that we can experience with the senses. But we also hear that like Krishna, spirituality can't be experienced with material senses.
Yeah.
And also, you mentioned yesterday at the house program that in Madhurya Kanandani, I think, that bhakti comes from bhakti, right? Then also today you said that in nectar devotion it gives a process, and if we do the process and we get the result. But they seem like 2 contradictory things. Bhakti comes from bhakti, it's independent. But at the same time, you can do something to get bhakti. It seems.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good points, thank you. So I'll begin with your second one first. On one hand, we say bhakti comes from bhakti, but then on another hand, we say devotional service is, there's all these practices which awaken bhakti. When we say bhakti comes from bhakti, what we're saying is that the seed of bhakti can only be implanted by someone who has bhakti. Krishna bhakti janma mula hoya sadhu sang. Or sometimes Prabhupada gave the verse Brahmande Brahmite Gona Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bhi. So when we say bhakti comes from bhakti, what we're referring to is that the seed of bhakti can only be implanted in one's heart by one who has bhakti. But when we say that the practices awaken bhakti, what's later on explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita is that once the pure devotee has instilled the seed of bhakti, you have to become a gardener. Malihane kare se bijo aropan, shravana kirtana jale kore se chan. You have to become a gardener and you have to water your seed of bhakti. How? Shravana kirtana jale, by the water of hearing and chanting. And so that what we're explaining today is that when we become a gardener and we cultivate that seed of bhakti which has been given to us by someone who has bhakti, then that seed will sprout. Does that help to reconcile? Yeah. And the second point, your first point, is Krishna consciousness a science? Because science is experience with the senses. But then we say Krishna consciousness cannot be experienced with the senses. Well, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, Ata Shri Krishna Namadi na bhavet grayam indriye sevan mukhe hi jivado swayam eva spuratyada. Krishna's name, fame, form, qualities and pastimes cannot be ascertained by the blunt material senses. But when those blunt material senses are purified with devotional service which begins with the tongue, then with spiritual senses one can perceive Krishna. Therefore, even in the Bhagavad Gita, what does Krishna say? Rajavidya Rajaguyam Pavitram Nidamutamam Pratyaksha Avagamam Dharmyam. Aksha means to see, Prati means directly. So Pratyaksha means, Krishna says, you'll directly perceive Krishna consciousness by direct realization. So basically what it means is that Krishna consciousness is a science, but it's not a material science. If science tries to claim the whole domain of science as material science, we have a problem with that. Because we say there is a higher dimensional science. And that higher dimensional science is the process by which you transform your consciousness. And with transformed consciousness, you perceive realities beyond the world. So science limits itself to perceiving things through material senses, but spirituality opens up the prospect of perceiving higher things through spiritualized senses, and that is just the scientific. Is that okay?
Yeah, I was also just like thinking, like in terms of like the holy names, for example, because it's very easy to think, okay, I do this, I do that, and then I'll be able to chant the holy names. But then also, that's also
It's not
like
mechanical.
Well, that's also like another contradiction, because you also hear that the holy names it's not it descends upon us, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so in this higher dimensional science, there are also elements which are beyond our control, like grace and mercy. So then you may say, if there are elements beyond your control, then how can you say it's a science? But again, according to the modern definition of science, they want to control everything. And for them, if you can't control it, it's not science. But for us, science means a process. Now, in that process, there may be things beyond your control, yet that doesn't mean it's not scientific, because the idea that Krishna gives is that if you do these activities, then my mercy will descend. You understand? So you're not causing the mercy to descend. That's not in your control. But it's still a science, because Krishna himself is saying, if you do X, Y, and Z, then I'll be inclined to give you my mercy. But we're not controlling the mercy, but we can make ourselves available and we can do things which will attract that mercy. And in that sense, it's still scientific. But in the material world, they'll tell you, unless every single factor is under your control, it's not science. But we don't ascribe to that definition. So yes, the mercy of the holy name is beyond our control. Yet, if we chant 3 of the 10 offenses, as is given by our teachers, then the Lord says, why will I not make myself available to you? Definitely I will. Like Krishna, can Krishna be controlled? What do you think?
By love.
Only by
Yeah. So Krishna, in one sense, he can't be controlled, because he's completely independent, svatantra. But then later on, Krishna will say, aham bhakta paradino yashvantantra ivadrija. I'm completely dependent on my devotee. I'm not independent. But that control is a control of love. And that's something which can't be defined in scientific terms. But that doesn't mean there's not a process. There's a process. Okay, I think we'll... there's a question. Shall we end or...? Okay, last question.
Could you say a few words, Maharaj, about propensity to criticize, maybe in connection to understanding that Krishna is in everyone's heart?
Yeah, this is the sign of an advanced devotee, one who is free, completely free from the propensity to criticize others. They say we are judges for other people's mistakes, but we are lawyers for our own mistakes. When someone else does something wrong, we're quick to jump on them. But when we do something wrong, we have 100 explanations of how it can be justified. So this tendency is very, very strong within the conditioned soul to want to bring others down. And oftentimes, number one, we're just plain wrong when we criticize other people. We just misjudge the whole situation. The second scenario is that even if we haven't misjudged the situation, the truth, even if it's true, the point that you're making, it must always be delivered in a way in which it's empowering, uplifting, and inspiring. And therefore, even if one finds a genuine thing that is wrong and needs to be addressed, it's still criticism and degrading if you deliver it in such a way that it brings people's consciousness down. And the third thing is that even if it's true and you give it in the right way, we should be aware that the fact that we saw it and were affected by it means that there's some level of anartha also within our heart. And like this, as that propensity to criticize comes, we can use it as a time to be very, very introspective and work on ourselves. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, when faults in others misguide you, then be patient, introspect, and look for faults within yourself. Know that nobody can hurt you unless you hurt yourself. And so that ability to just, when that propensity comes, to immediately deflect it back and look within oneself is very powerful. Because we're so apt to be critical, if we were able to do that, it'd be a great trigger to becoming very introspective. If we did that every time, I have the propensity to criticize, let me become introspective. We'd become very deeply introspective. So, yes, one devotee, I'll say one final thing. One devotee said something to me which always helps me. He said, don't see how far people are from the ideal, but rather see how far they've come from where they were. We could always look at everyone and say, no, not a pure devotee. But we could also see, where was this person 5, 10, 15 years ago? How much they've changed, how much they've transformed. We can appreciate, my God, they have actually made a lot of progress.
I just need to say this one story. Somebody shared, I think it was Mahatma Prabhu in New Vrindavan last weekend, that I think it was in Russia. The devotees were very disturbed by this one person, and they were complaining about his behavior, and then some kind of somebody approached him, and he was like, well, if I was previously, before I became devotee, I would just kill him. But now I'm just maybe angry and this and that. I'm not that nice, but I really made a huge progress. I'm not killing you now.
He was a former KGB officer.
I'm sorry?
He was a former KGB
Oh, yes.
officer.
Oh,
temple
okay,
president. Became a temple president. Became a devotee. That was his service. That's what he said.
That was a
Or would
significant
kill
thing. Now you just got some words. Yeah? Yes.
Kind of in the same vein, there was a devotee who was in prison for some violent crime. And during his imprisonment, he underwent spiritual transformation by numbers of devotees who attempted to infuse him with understanding of so with that actual transformation, even physically, you can see the actual color and content change. The person who was a prosecutor for that case had gone after the death penalty. It was avoided. One day I was talking to that prosecutor about a different topic, and he said to me, "What do you think of so-and-so get out of parole? This guy has no chance of parole when he's ever getting free." So I said, "You know and I know, not a chance." Because, yeah, So even this person who wanted the death penalty for this person, he could see what had been his transformation, and he understood where it came from. I further told him, that even if he would get out and he would meet something unfinished, and then he'd have to come back again, better he finishes it up now. His consciousness is actually not distracted because it's so important. The only solace is
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Chaitanya Charitamrita ki
Jai.
Story next.
Swayam Bhagwan Krishna.